Hi, I'm Nora Bennett. I found out my sister was having dinner with my fiancé, so I reserved the table right next to theirs. My own blood stole my dress, my dreams, even my future, pretending it was just chemistry. Their betrayal was like a shadow creeping over everything I trusted, each stolen moment a silent wound. They erased me, quietly looted my life for months, and smiled while I sat in the dark, their laughter echoing in the shadows of my trust. Will you stay silent or watch me reclaim every stolen piece? Before we dive in, let us know what time you're listening to this and where you are. Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. It was one of those quiet evenings where everything seemed too calm for its own good. Seattle's soft rain tapped against the window, a gentle rhythm that belied the storm brewing inside me. The city's gray haze mirroring my growing unease. James was in the shower, humming to himself like nothing in the world could touch us, his carefree tune a sharp contrast to the dread pooling in my chest, each note a mockery of our shared life. I was curled up on the couch in our living room at 412 Cedar Lane, sorting through sample color palettes for a client presentation, the soft glow of the lamp casting a deceptive warmth over the room, its light flickering as if sensing my unease, the kind of night that should have ended in tea and sleep. But then his phone lit up. Just a ping, a harmless chime I'd heard 1,000 times. The notification's glow cut through the dim light like a warning, pulling my gaze despite myself, its sharp edge slicing through the calm. I didn't mean to look, I swear I didn't. But the screen was facing me, and curiosity, no, something deeper, made me glance, a cold instinct whispering that something was wrong. My heart stuttering as the words came into focus. Luna, Friday private booth, she'll love it. I blinked. The message preview was from my sister, Clara. My stomach clenched. My fingers tightened around the palette samples, the edges biting into my palms, a faint tremor betraying my calm facade. My first thought was, that must be a mistake. But it wasn't. The sender ID was clear and the tone too familiar. Private booth at Luna, that wasn't a place you went with coworkers or for casual dinners. It was where James took me on our first anniversary. I sat frozen for a beat. Then my hand moved on its own, reaching for his phone like it belonged to me. I hesitated. I wasn't someone who snooped, but something about that message. It wasn't curiosity, it was instinct. The passcode still our anniversary. I wanted to laugh. The screen unlocked and I stepped into a different universe. Their thread wasn't just messages. It was a slow, unraveling betrayal. They had dinner reservations, inside jokes, references to things that had happened when I thought James was working late or out of town for a conference. And then the photo, her wearing the dress, my dress, the one I let her borrow last month because she had a charity event, and nothing wear her borrow last month because she had a charity event, and nothing decent to wear. To the same dress she'd smirked at before, teasing, "It's cute, kind of modest for me, though." Her laugh, sharp, dismissive, now echoing in my mind like a taunt. "You always loved playing it safe," she'd added, her words a calculated jab that stung deeper in hindsight. There she was, posing in that same dress, one shoulder slightly off, a hand on her hip like she owned it. Or maybe like she'd just claimed something more than fabric. Her smile in the photo was sharp, like she knew exactly what she was taking, a calculated theft of my joy, her eyes glinting with triumph. I stared at the image for what felt like hours. I wasn't just looking at infidelity. I was looking at erasure. My sister had taken something sacred and made it hers. My fiancé, my dress, my place. I didn't cry. I didn't throw his phone across the room. I didn't scream. I placed the phone exactly where I found it. Then I walked slow and steady to the kitchen, poured a glass of water with hands that should have been shaking. They weren't. It's strange how betrayal doesn't hit like lightning. It seeps in like cold. Once the water touched my lips, I picked up my own phone and texted Lucas. "You awake?" he replied in less than a minute. "For you. Always." Lucas, my best friend, my ex, the only person who'd ever seen all the Clara damage and called it what it was. "I need to make a dinner reservation," I said as soon as he picked up. I kept my voice steady, clinical. "Luna, Friday night." There was a pause. Right next to them, he asked, his voice low, catching the weight of my intent, a quiet understanding in his tone, his pause heavy with concern. Make it count, Nora, he said softly, his words a subtle nudge fueling my resolve. The maître d' was surprisingly accommodating. I didn't need a beg or lie, just said I wanted a private dinner, possibly near another party for work reasons. He promised discretion. Once that was done, I stood stealth in the center of the kitchen, the quiet buzz of the fridge, the faint water from the shower upstairs. It all made my head feel hollow, like none of this could be happening, but it was. I turned off the kitchen light, walked back to the hallway. James was still in the shower. Instead of going to bed, I slipped into my home office, sat at the old wooden desk I inherited from Dad, opened the navy leather diary I hadn't touched since the new year, and on a fresh page, I wrote one sentence in thick black ink, then underlined it 3 times. Let's see what it feels like to sit next to betrayal and not flinch. I closed the diary, and this time my hands did shake just a little. Let's see what it feels like to sit next to betrayal and not flinch. That line had lived in my head for the past 3 days. I repeated it while brushing my teeth, whispered it while driving to work, rewrote it again and again in my journal like a mantra I didn't believe yet, but needed to. Each word was a shield, forging my resolve against the pain, a quiet vow to reclaim my voice. Friday, March 7, 2025, came fast. By 6:30 p.m., I was already at Luna. I had never seen the place so dimly lit, so hushed, like it knew something tense was about to unfold. The soft glow of candles cast flickering shadows on the walls, mirroring my unease, the air heavy with the scent of rosemary and wine. Its warmth a deceptive mask for the cold truth awaiting. The maître d' greeted me with the kind of look you reserve for regulars who tip well and bring drama. He nodded discreetly and gestured toward the corner. As requested, Ms. Mennett, table 12. Your guest has arrived. Guest? I turned and saw Lucas already seated, navy blazer, white shirt, no tie, calm as ever. You didn't think I'd let you face this alone, did you? He said, rising with a soft smile. He held out his hand. I took it. His grip was warm, firm, and just long enough that if someone were watching, which they soon would be, it might look like we were something more. He pulled out my chair like we were on a first date. I sat in silence, smoothing the fabric of my dress, a fitted black sheath. Nothing flashy, just strong. The kind of thing Clara would never be caught dead in. My wine was already waiting. Crisp, dry white. I sipped it slowly, letting the cool bite settle me. Lucas leaned in. You sure you want to be here for this? I've been sure since the second she wore my dress, I replied. She doesn't get to take everything and walk away. Not this time, I added softly, my voice steady but edged with quiet defiance, my eyes fixed on the empty booth across the room, its second Trelvin like he was expecting someone familiar, but trying not to look obvious. Hair styled just the way I used to, worn my fingers through it, that same slight hunch in his shoulders when he was nervous. I watched it all from 10 feet away. Then Clara followed, and just like always, she made an entrance, hair swept up, confident strides, a smile like she'd never heard a soul in her life. Her eyes sparkled under the chandelier light, a performance of innocence, her posture a calculated display of ease. She was wearing my nude stilettos, the Louboutins I had lent her for a client dinner 6 months ago. They were never returned. Just like so many pieces of me she'd casually borrowed, then claimed. She laughed at something James said, her laugh bright and deliberate, a sound that pierced the quiet like a blade. They slid into the booth on the same side, close, like a couple who'd already rehearsed this moment. Her hand brushed his arm, a gesture too familiar, too deliberate. God, Lucas muttered under his breath. They look rehearsed. I didn't answer. I was too busy memorizing every inch of their body language, hers draped toward him, his hand hovering near her thigh. I swirled my wine, then stopped. Lucas didn't stop me. I took the long route past the booth, pretending to head to the restroom. As I returned, I made eye contact. Clara spotted me first. She froze, her smile collapsed in real time. Her fingers tightened around her glass, a faint tremble betraying her facade. Her eyes darting to James for rescue. James turned next. His jaw actually dropped. I stopped beside their booth, calm as ever. My voice didn't even waver. Clara, I said smoothly. I believe you remember Lucas? Lucas stood behind me like a silent monolith, nodding politely. He didn't smile. Didn't need to. Clara's mouth opened, then shut again. James looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. And you, I turned to him. I believe for God I see everything. James blinked. Nora, what is this? His voice cracked slightly, betraying his panic. You tell me, I said, tilting my head. I'm just here for dinner, like you. Oh, did you think I wouldn't notice? I added, my tone soft but pointed, a quiet challenge, my gaze piercing his faltering composure. Nora, please, let's not do this here, he stammered, his hands fidgeting, a desperate plea for control. They didn't move, didn't say a word. Clara looked down first, like the tiled floor could save her. I turned toward the maitre d', who had been watching from a polite distance. Would it be possible to push these two tables together? I asked, my voice syrup smooth. It's time for a conversation. The maitre d' gave a quiet nod and moved the tables together without asking a single question, just the clink of silverware and the faint shuffle of linen as our corners merged. Lucas slid in beside me again. James sat stiffly across, Clara next to him with her arms locked tightly in her lap. For a long moment, no one spoke. The table wasn't just silent. It was suffocating. James tried first, of course he did. It's not what you think, he began, voice shaking. I was going to talk to you, Nora. I swear, we never meant for— Don't. This isn't about betrayal, she said. This is about a connection we couldn't ignore. It just happened. A connection? I tilted my head. Is that what you call forwarding him the reservation I made for our anniversary? James shifted in his seat. Clara's jaw twitched. Lucas remained quiet, but the subtle movement of his thumb brushing my knuckles beneath the table was all the grounding I needed. You didn't fall in love, I said, looking them both dead in the eye. You rehearsed this lie in my absence. Clara snorted. Come on, Nora. He was never truly yours. You two, you played house, sure, but you were always halfway out the door. And you saw an opening, I said, my voice steady, eyes narrowing slightly. You always did know how to take what wasn't yours. Like you've been doing since we were kids, I added, my tone calm but cutting, a quiet nod to her lifelong pattern. Her smile cracked. You've always made things dramatic, even when we were teens, she said. Remember the art contest? You acted like losing that photo spot was a war crime. My breath caught. I remembered because I didn't lose. I had won first place regionally. My photo had hung on the family mantle for exactly 1 week. Then Dad replaced it with Clara's homecoming queen picture. He said it was more representative of the family. It's more fitting, he'd said, barely looking at me, dismissing my pride. I was 16, and that week I wrote in my diary, I guess I'm the background. Clara never knew I saw that swap, or that I cried about it in the garage for 2 hours with the radio turned up so no one would hear me. I didn't respond. Not then. Just pushed my chair and said to the maitre d', We're done here, thank you. He nodded. Lucas stood. The table didn't argue. The ride back to my apartment was quiet. The kind of quiet that hums like static in your bones. Lucas walked me a few. I stood inside, shoes off, still dressed from dinner. Couldn't sleep. So I sat on the couch, phone in hand, and started scrolling. The faint hum of the city outside was a distant reminder of a world moving on without me, its rhythm a stark contrast to the chaos within. Clara had posted a new photo set at a vineyard. James' hand on her lower back, Clara in a dress nearly identical to the one I had planned for my own seat. The captions, even the quote under the main photo. My quote, the one I'd emailed James last month when I was planning our engagement session. Love doesn't need to be loud to be forever. The words stared back at me, a theft so blatant it stole my breath, each letter a fresh cut. I stared at the screen, heart pounding like I'd run a mile, breath short, cold sweat beating along my spine. They didn't just take him, they took my story. My life's outline, photos, words, style, claimed as theirs. My phone buzzed. Lucas? Still awake? I typed back. They didn't just take him, they took my story. I put the phone down, went to my bookshelf, and pulled the old journal, leather-bound, barely holding together, the one I hadn't opened in over a decade. I flipped past the pages. Birthday doodles, old crush rants, family holidays I pretended to enjoy. Then I found it. 15 years ago. The page was yellowed, but the ink still crisp. If I ever disappear from my own life, I hope someone notices. I ran my fingers across the sentence. I whispered, I notice now. I notice now. And once you start noticing, you can't go back to pretending. The next morning, March 10th, 2025, I didn't open my laptop, didn't check emails, didn't even feed the plants like I usually do. Just sat there with my coffee going cold, staring at nothing until my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in months. Tessa Warren. We met in law school, drifted when life pulled in opposite directions. I knew she and Clara had become close again lately, weekly book clubs, Pilates wine night. I hadn't thought much of it until now. Tessa's text. Hey, I know this is awkward. Can we talk? Just us? She picked a cafe at 305 Elm Street, quiet, local, the kind of place that served espresso in real ceramic cups and played acoustic covers of 90s hits. When I walked in, the scent of fresh coffee filled the air, a fleeting comfort against the weight I carried. She was already there, both hands wrapped around her mug like it might help her speak faster. Her eyes darted nervously, as if expecting Clara to appear. Thanks for coming, she said. I couldn't stay quiet anymore, she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. I nodded, sliding into the seat across from her. What's going on, Tessa? You deserve to know the truth, she said, her fingers tightening around the mug, her knuckles paling with the effort. She hesitated, then pulled out her phone. I thought you knew. I didn't want to get in the middle, but you didn't deserve this. She tapped open a thread of texts. Clara's name sat bold at the top, her messages cruel. Nora clings like a puppy. James can't breathe. You should see how he lights up when he's with me. It's like she kept him in a cage. She's been bragging about it for months, Tessa whispered, her voice breaking, her guilt a heavy shroud. Tessa's eyes brimmed with guilt as she handed me the phone. They've been seeing each other for almost a year. I didn't flinch. I didn't ask for more. I just handed the phone back, jaw tight, and said, Thanks for being honest. That's more than I've gotten from most people. Later that afternoon, I drove to my mother's house at 609 Maple Lane, if only to prove to myself I could stand there and not break. The house still smelled like lemon cleaner and nostalgia. A little too clean, a little too hollow. The familiar creak of the floorboards stirred old memories, now tainted, each step a reminder of a home that no longer felt mine. She opened the door, surprised. Nora, everything okay? I just wanted to talk, I said, keeping my voice even. About James. Her brow furrowed, and she led me to the kitchen. Tea was already brewing, its steam curling like a fragile hope, quickly dispelled by her words. I know it's not easy, she said after a pause. But James, well, he always seemed more alive around Clara. Maybe it's not betrayal. Maybe it's just chemistry. I blinked. Chemistry? She said, her tone sharp, avoiding my gaze, her words a dismissal that cut deeper than expected. Before she could respond, footsteps came down the stairs. Clara, wearing one of my old college sweatshirts, book in hand. Oh, she said casually. Didn't know you were coming by, she said with a smirk, flipping the book shut with a snap, her eyes glinting with challenge. I stared at the cover of the book, the one I'd kept under my bed for years, a gift from Dad before he got sick. She dog-eared it. You're living here, I'd asked. Just until the wedding, she replied, not even blinking. Mom said it's fine. Of course she did, I said, my voice low, a quiet jab at their alliance. I looked back at our mother. She didn't deny it. I stood, slowly. I'll let you both get back to your bonding, but at the front, I turned. Clara was trailing behind me, probably to gloat. I stopped, turned to face her. You may have fooled them, I said quietly. You may even believe what you're doing is love, but you're building it on ashes. Her lip curled. You're just bitter. Let it go. You never made him happy. You were too busy being the good sister, she added, her voice dripping with scorn. each word a calculated strike. There it was, the gut punch. Still, I didn't waver. "Enjoy him," I said, voice like ice. "But if you try to erase me again, I'll make sure everyone sees who did the burning." She rolled her eyes and slammed the door behind me, and there on the hallway table, the last little insult, was a framed photo, one I'd taken years ago on our family trip to Whidbey Island, my shot. My watermark had been cropped out. Beneath it, a gold plaque read, "Captured by Clara." I took out my phone and snapped a picture. I didn't even remember walking out of the house. The next thing I knew, I was in my car, the engine running but the keys still in my lap. The framed photo was burned into my vision. One I took, one I edited, one I cherished, and now repurposed like everything else they'd taken. The dashboard clock glowed faintly, ticking away the seconds of my resolve, its soft hum a quiet companion to my racing thought. 3 days passed, March 10, 12, 2025. I worked, but not really. I went through the motions, keeping my replies short and my voice steady, but inside something was moving, shifting, settling. Then came the message. "Mom, can you come by Saturday, just to talk calmly?" The word calmly gave her away. Something was planned. Saturday afternoon, March 15, 2025, I drove up the familiar driveway at 609 Maple Lane, the gravel crunching like it always had. A subtle ache rose in my chest. How many holidays, birthdays, late-night tears had this house held for me? Now, I wasn't sure it held anything. The front door's faded paint mocked the warmth it once promised, a silent witness to my fading ties. Inside, I found them already arranged, Mom on the sofa's edge like a mediator, Dad across from her, hands folded. James sat stiffly near the armrest, and Clara, perfect posture, legs crossed, smiling like she belonged there more than I ever had. Her smile was too bright, like she was daring me to challenge her. "Thank you for coming," Mom said, as if this were a negotiation. I took the only empty seat and waited. "We just want to move forward with peace," she continued. "There's no sense in dragging this tension. The engagement party is 2 weeks away. Can we agree not to create any scenes?" "You mean keep quiet?" I asked, my voice low, testing her, my eyes narrowing at her practiced calm. My jaw tensed. "By scenes, do you mean telling the truth?" Dad, who rarely spoke unless it was about the weather or car maintenance, looked up. "There's no reason to dig up more than what's already done." James cleared his throat but said nothing. And then Clara, glowing like always, chimed in. "We just want to celebrate. Start fresh, the deposit's taken care of, the honeymoon's locked in. It's finally all squared away." "Thanks to you, right?" I said, my tone even but pointed, my eyes locking onto hers, a quiet challenge that made her smile falter. Something clicked. The deposit. The honeymoon. 2 years ago, she called me crying. "It's an emergency, Nora. I need a medical procedure and can't tell Mom. I'll pay you back, I swear." I wired her $25,000, 0 cents. No paperwork, just trust. I never saw a bill, never saw a scar, just a new apartment and a growing Pinterest board labeled "Forever with him." And now I knew that money didn't go to any hospital. It bought her the vineyard venue, the honeymoon suite, my silence. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. My whole body went cold, like my skin knew before my mouth could form it. Clara reached into her bag and pulled out a thick envelope, white and embossed. "Here," she said sweetly. "Your invitation. I still want you there." I took it, stared at the gold lettering, our family's name printed on the front like nothing was wrong. Then I handed it back. "I won't be attending the celebration of theft," Mom's breath caught. "Don't do this, Nora." "She's your sister. You've always favored her," I said, my voice steady, the truth spilling out unbidden, sharp and raw. I looked at her. Really looked at her. "And I was your daughter first." I stood and walked out before anyone could stop me. No yelling, no last words. Just the weight of 1,000 unsaid things pressing between my shoulder blades. Outside, the sky had turned overcast. I reached my car, leaned against the door, and let the air fill my lungs. Then I unlocked my phone and typed the one message I'd been circling for days, to Lucas. "It's time. Can we talk Monday?" "Legal." By the time Lucas opened his office door Monday morning, March 17th, 2025, at 210 Oak Street, I was already sitting in the lobby holding a folder I hadn't dared look inside for days. He didn't say good morning or you look tired. He simply nodded, stepped aside, and said, "Come in." The room smelled faintly of leather and old coffee, comforting in a strange way. It reminded me of when we used to study for the bar exam together, back before titles and betrayal. I set the folder down on his desk and said quietly, "I want you to see this. I think they used my name," sliding the folder toward him, my fingers lingering on its edge, a quiet plea for justice, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't flinch, just opened the folder and began reading. Inside were screenshots of the wire transfer to Clara, $25,000, 0 cents labeled only as personal, and copies of James' old business proposal he once asked me to review. At the time, he told me he was just brainstorming. Now, I realized it had been a blueprint. They planned this, I said softly, my voice steady but heavy with realization, the weight of their deceit settling like a stone. Lucas didn't speak for several minutes. He pulled out a slim locked drawer and removed a printed set of LLC documents. "This is Clara's startup, right?" I nodded. "Take a look at line 14, he said, pushing the form toward me. "Initial angel investor registered as NB Fru through Names's shell management firm. That's you. It was your transfer. They masked it through his name." I looked closer, and there it was. A signature I'd used once years ago on a lease agreement. They'd lifted it, reused it. "They used me to start her business," I whispered, "then deleted me when she didn't need me anymore." Lucas leaned back in his chair. "You can sue. You'd win. But if you do it now, they'll paint you as bitter, jealous. You'll look like a jilted ex with money. If you wait, you can catch them off balance. Let's make them stumble first," he added, his voice calm but resolute, a glint of determination in his eyes. "I want them to feel this," I said, my tone low, a quiet fire kindling within, the first spark of retribution. He was right, again. We spent the next hour crafting a strategy. No lawsuits yet, just friction. We prepared paperwork to flag any future investments tied to that business name. He helped me file a formal notice of contribution, just enough to appear in public records, but not enough to trigger headlines yet. By mid-afternoon, I walked out with a folder under one arm and clarity under the other. That evening, just before sunset, I stopped by Clara's boutique at 305 Pine Avenue. The windows gleamed. So did her name, gold script etched on the glass like it had always been hers. I walked in holding a scarf she'd lent me back in college. Her assistant looked up, eyes wide. Her hands fumbled with a stack of papers, betraying her unease. "Oh, hi. Did you see the email?" "What email?" "The system froze. Our Stripe account's on hold. Some legal flag tied to an investor's name, yours." She fidgeted with a pen, clearly uneasy. When I could respond, Clara emerged from the back. Her smile faded the moment she saw me. Her hand clutched the doorframe, a fleeting sign of her unraveling, her fingers trembling slightly. She looked like she'd seen something she didn't know could bleed. I handed her the scarf. "Figured you might want this back." She opened her mouth, but no words came. I stepped closer, just enough that only she could hear me. Funny thing about erasing people. Sometimes their names reappear in bold. "You should have known better," I added, my voice a quiet blade slicing through her silence. And then I left. No scene, no drama, just the silence of a woman who finally knew her worth. At home, I kicked off my shoes, poured a glass of water, and opened my laptop. That's when the anonymous message came in. No name, no profile, just a plain DM, just a heads up. "They're planning to go public first, discredit you before you go legal." The DM sat open on my screen for a full minute before I moved. The words burned, a quiet spark igniting my resolve, each syllable a call to arms. No name, no profile picture, just a sentence that hit like a match to dry leaves. I didn't respond. I didn't even breathe for a second. I just closed the laptop, stood up, and walked to my closet. The dress I chose wasn't flashy. Deep navy, structured shoulders, clean neckline. I wore my hair up, makeup subtle. There would be no distractions tonight. just true. Thursday night traffic in Seattle buzzed outside, the city pretending it didn't know the storm brewing in one of its upscale hotel ballrooms. I arrived early, March 21, 2025. Uninvited but confident. No one stopped me at the entrance. Funny how people assume you belong when you look like you do. Inside, the air was thick with perfume, ambition, and curated smiles. The kind of networking gala where people say authenticity and mean angle. I took a glass of sparkling water from a passing tray and let my eyes adjust. The chandeliers cast a soft glow, making everyone look flawless, even the liars, their light a cruel irony against the truth I carried. And there she was, Clara, on stage under warm spotlight, her voice clear and rehearsed. And so I started from scratch, no shortcuts, just vision, hard work, and the right people who believe in me. She paused, her hand brushing her necklace, a nervous tic she couldn't hide, her fingers lingering as if to steady her faltering confidence. Applause. A dramatic pause. She placed her hand to her chest as a slideshow flashed behind her. Childhood photos, images from her boutique, and finally the words, Bennett, self-made founder, story of resilience. I moved through the crowd like smoke. Behind the polite chatter, I caught fragments. James said his ex spiraled after the breakup. Apparently, she's making trouble for them now. Such a shame, really. Some people can't move on, and there it was. James just off stage, leaning in toward a PR rep with a concerned expression painted perfectly for sympathy. She's fragile, I heard him say. We didn't want to say anything before, but she's making things up. We've only ever wished her peace. She's always been unstable, he added, his voice a calculated whisper, loud enough for me to hear, a deliberate smear. I could have screamed. I could have grabbed a mic and torn their lies in half. But I didn't. Instead, I walked quietly toward the front as the MC wrapped up segment. And now, before we close out, a special acknowledgement to past contributors who've helped elevate women in leadership. Starting with Nora Bennett. I stepped up. A few polite claps, a few confused glances. I took the mic, smiled faintly, and held up my phone. I believe stories matter, I said, especially the ones where someone gets written out and then writes back in. The truth has a way of surfacing, I added softly, my eyes scanning the crowd, a quiet promise of what was to come. I tapped the screen. James' voice echoed across the ballroom speakers. We didn't want to say anything before, but she's unstable. We kept quiet, out of love. Murmurs, chairs shifted, glasses paused midair. Then I tapped again. Founding document of Bennett and Company, I said. Filed January 3, 2024. Initial investor Nora Bennett. I held up the notarized printout for all to see. And the original marketing deck, I continued, all built from a vision they now call theirs alone. Clara had frozen halfway down the steps toward the mic. Her hand gripped the railing, her knuckles white, betraying her fear, her face pale as the spotlight exposed her lies. I turned to her. I'm not here to humiliate you, I said, voice even. I'm here to correct the record. Then I handed the mic to the MC, stepped down from the stage, and walked out. Behind me, the room burst into noise, gasps, whispers, camera flashes, but I didn't look back. I closed the door behind them, not slamming it, not even pressing it shut, just letting the silence swallow their exit. For a moment, I stood there, one hand still on the doorknob. My apartment had never felt so clean, so empty of pretense. I exhaled and turned toward my phone. That clip from the gala. It had exploded. By morning it was everywhere. Someone had caught the whole thing on video. My speech, the contract, Clara's face, even the moment I walked away with nothing but my name reclaiming itself. Twitter lit up with hashtags like Real Founder, Silent Manure, and my personal favorite, turns out the quiet sister built the house they tried to evict her from. And my inbox wasn't safe. Journalists, old colleagues, distant relatives. A stranger had emailed, I never liked Clara. Thank you for reminding the world that loud doesn't mean right. But then came Lucas' call. The audit triggered. Stripe flagged Clara's LLC in the big fund. They're pulling out until ownership gets clarified. His voice was calm, but I could hear the satisfaction in it, a quiet victory we'd earned. I sat down slowly on the edge of my couch, not out of shock, but relief. Not victory yet, but breathing room. Then came the message I never expected. A forwarded voice recording, no name, just a subject line. "You should hear this." I clicked play. James' voice, unmistakable and casual. "She won't fight back, Nora. She doesn't have it in her. We'll just shift everything over slowly. By the time she notices, it'll be ours." There was a pause, then Clara's laugh. She always wanted things to be fair. That's her flaw. The file cut out. My hands shook, but not from pain. From clarity. The forwarded address, Clara's boutique. I checked the metadata. The file was logged under her assistant folder. 3 hours later, a quiet email came in. "She made us erase you from everything. I'm sorry I couldn't keep doing it, Seth." I didn't write back. I just stared out the window for a while, watching the shadows shift across my building. The city lights flickered. A quiet reminder of my reclaimed strength, their glow a testament to the fire I'd rediscovered. Some betrayals cut deep, but some liberate. That evening, they came. James knocked first. Clara stood behind him. I didn't invite them in. I let them speak. "Nora, we can undo this," James said. "If you call off the legal claim, we'll make things right publicly. Just tell them it was a miscommunication." "Do you mean another lie?" I asked, my voice steady, my eyes fixed on his, unwavering in their resolve. Clara's voice cracked. "I didn't mean to ruin you. I didn't know it would go this far." "You didn't care enough to stop," I said, my tone even, cutting through her plea like a blade, each word a step toward freedom. I nodded slowly. "You didn't ruin me." I paused, let the weight of the silence settle. "You freed me." "They didn't have words for that." Clara turned as they left. "I don't even know who you are anymore." "You never did," she repeated, her voice breaking, a desperate attempt to wound me one last time. I smiled, genuinely this time. "Maybe that's the problem. You never did." "But I know who I am now," I added, my voice soft but unyielding, a final declaration of my reclaimed self. "Maybe that's the problem. You never did." "Maybe that's the problem. You never did." Clara's voice had barely faded when I closed the door. The air in my apartment held the weight of everything left unsaid, but for once, I didn't need it lighter. I needed it honest. It had been a month since the gala. A month since the crowd fell silent and the version of me they tried to erase took the microphone instead. In that time, silence had changed hands. Clara's brand lost 3 sponsorships within the first week. James quietly stepped down from the firm he'd helped co-found. Their coordinated smear unraveled with the leak of that old recording, his voice confessing they planned it all, not a misunderstanding, a transition. The assistant who sent it to me never asked for credit. She just wrote, "She made us erase your name." I couldn't anymore. That was enough. Apology emails trickled in from people I hadn't heard from in years. Some said they were shocked. Others claimed they never fully believed Clara's version. I didn't respond. Closure, I learned, is something you stop chasing when you start healing. My mother never called. And that hurt, not because I expected an apology, but because some part of me still thought she might try to understand. She didn't, and maybe never would. But I didn't write this chapter for her. One quiet Friday evening, April 11, 2025, I was invited to a community art gala at the new Downtown Cultural Center at 820 Pine Road. It wasn't extravagant, just warm artists, small lights strung across a polished patio. The soft murmur of voices mingled with the scent of blooming jasmine, a fleeting warmth against the cool night air. I wasn't even sure why I went until I got there. Near the buffet table, tucked between modest floral arrangements and a table of scholarship brochures, I saw it. A napkin folded into the shape of a leaf. The same shape from the table where James first took me to dinner. The same design Clara once mocked. Too precious, she'd said. But tonight, it wasn't a joke. It was a nod. The delicate fold caught the light, a quiet tribute to my creativity, its gentle curve a silent affirmation of my worth. Lucas stood a few feet away, arms crossed, quiet as ever. When our eyes met, he smiled slightly. "Told them it was your thing," he said. and took a sip of something amber. They'd named a scholarship that night after my father, for those who build behind the scenes. It's about time someone noticed, Lucas said quietly, his voice warm with pride, his words a balm to the wounds I'd carried. I hadn't known until the host read it aloud. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. Later, when the crowd thinned and the sky darkened over the Puget Sound, its waters shimmering like a canvas of stars, Lucas and I walked along the water's edge. He asked, "Do you feel better now?" I shook my head. Not better, just clearer. It wasn't revenge that moved through me anymore. It was something quieter, sharper. A clean line between who I used to be and who I refused to be again. They wrote me out, I told him, but I didn't disappear. I just picked up the pen. And I'm not putting it down, I added, my voice steady, a vow to myself, sealed in the quiet of the night. We didn't say much after that. We didn't need to. Back home that night, I framed a photo from the gala, one a friend had snapped while I was on stage. Mid-sentence, back straight, no hesitation in my eyes. It wasn't about looking powerful, it was about looking like myself again. In my journal, I wrote, "This wasn't the ending they wrote for me, but it's the one I chose, and that makes all the difference." Sometimes the people who silence you the loudest are the ones who fear your voice the most. And sometimes justice isn't loud. It's simply walking away, with your name intact. Have you ever had to reclaim your story? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone.